evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight, first, the good news. The conventional view among people who follow politics is that the Democratic Party is about to suffer a humiliating repudiation in next week's midterm elections. It seems very likely as of now that Democrats will lose both houses of Congress, and that's just the beginning of their pain. Polls suggest that even places that supported Joe Biden by a wide margin in 2020 are about to swing dramatically against him and his party. A week from today, New York, of all places, could have a Republican governor. The last time there was an election in New York, Biden won the state by 23 points. What we're seeing is what political scientists refer to as a realignment. And there's no mystery as to why it's happening. Democrats failed conclusively. No group in American history has done a worse job running this country than the neoliberals currently in charge. They're vicious, they're intolerant, and they are utterly corrupt. But above all, they are incompetent. In less than 2 years, it is not an overstatement to say they have run this country into the ground, wrecking our economy, desecrating our military, and opening the borders of the United States to more than 5 million lawbreakers. The destruction they have wrought is so profound, it's hard to describe. So of course there will be consequences for that. In a country with democratic elections, how could this party stay in power? Honestly, we don't know. But maybe Joe Biden does. Tonight, Biden traveled across the city of Washington to Union Station. Built by Teddy Roosevelt more than 100 years ago, Union Station was for generations one of the most beautiful public buildings in this country. Under Joe Biden, it has become a homeless encampment, a place that is too filthy and too dangerous for Starbucks. Standing at this monument to his own failures, Biden proceeded to do what he now so commonly does, bark at the rest of us for our moral failures. The guy who showered with his daughter is telling you you're a bad person. Tonight's topic, democracy. Here's a taste of it.
Yet now, extreme MAGA Republicans aim to question not only the legitimacy of past elections, but elections being held now and into the future. The extreme MAGA element of the Republican Party, which is a minority of that party, as I said earlier, but is its driving force, is trying to succeed where they failed in 2020. To suppress the right of voters and subvert the electoral system itself.
Well, that's very weird if you think about it. So here we are less than a week before the Democratic Party is expected to suffer overwhelming losses in the midterm elections. And here you have the leader of that party, Joe Biden, commanding you not to complain about the election results. Why is that? Well, let's see. Here's Joe Biden telling you that thanks to the changes, the many changes Democrats have made to our system of voting, all of which make voter fraud easier to commit, we may not know the results of the elections for a few days. But don't be alarmed. Everything is completely on the level. And whatever you do, do not ask questions, or else you're a criminal. Watch.
We want Americans to vote. We want every American's voice to be heard. Now we have to move the process forward. We know that more and more ballots are cast in early voting or by mail in America. We know that many states don't start counting those ballots till after the polls close on November 8th. That means in some cases we won't know the winner of the election for a few days, until a few days after the election. It takes time to count all legitimate ballots in a legal and orderly manner. It's always been important for citizens in democracy to be informed and engaged. Now it's important for citizens to be patient as well. That's how it's supposed to work.
What is this? What is going on here? We're a week from the election, 6 days. Biden could have given, would under normal circumstances have given, a speech about his policies and how they've made your life better. He tried to convince you this country is actually in better shape than it looks, and he did that. He could, in other words, have made a pitch for your vote based on what he has done. That's what politicians do in functioning democracies. They try to convince you to support them on the basis of what they have done for you. That is democracy. That's not at all what Joe Biden just did. Instead, Biden commanded you to accept the election results whenever they arrive, no matter what they may be. It was bizarre.
何これ要するにさ言ってたよね期日前投票とかね
はい
それ実際に選挙の投票所に行かないでやってるものが、郵便がこれが2年前の大統領選挙で大問題になったわけだよね。
そうですよ。
それがいっぱいあるんだと、ね、勝手に言ってるわけですよ。それで皆さん忍耐して待てと、すぐには結果が出ませんよって言ったんだよ。何日もかかるんだ。何これさ、イカサマやるよって言ってるもんじゃん。
怪しい。
俺たちイカサマやるからすぐ出ないからなって待っとけよ
怪しい
っていう話なのっていうことなんですよ。
本当にね。
と
そんなこと言うと余計、ね、
おかしいよねこれ。
本当に
タッカーが言う通りさ、私たちの政権ではこれをやりましたと、だから支持してくださいって1週間前だからそれを言うんじゃないの普通はと、何これっていうのが、
いやもうね、全てが狂ってますよ本当に。
いやこれ本当何これだからさ、8日の日に出ませんよ。スイングステートでさっき6州いろいろ注目する州があるとか言ってたけど、すぐ結果が出ないっていう州がいっぱい出てきて、あるいはバイデンジャンプじゃないけどなんとかジャンプがわかんないけど、いやこれ聞いちゃうとさ、なんか仕込んでんのこの人たちはと。
そうそうね、
アメリカの政治に詳しい人に聞いたけどね、10ポイントの差があるといくらね、イカサマやってもひっくり返さないぐらいの開きなんだって。でやっぱりこの10ポイント以上の開きがもう共和党と民主党にはあるから、そうそうひっくり返らないぐらいのもう支持率の低下なんだよ民主党はね。でこれをひっくり返すために今準備してるんじゃないですか。
そういうことなのかな。
わかんない。
いや
だからがぜん注目しないとな、火曜日10月8日
本当に
っていうことなんですよ。という視点で注目することが大事ですね。
そうですね。
なんかちょっとだから普通じゃないことが起こってるっていうことですよ。これだけはもう確かなことでしょ。
確かに確かに。
不正選挙を行います予告だろうかと思えてしまうほどおかしいって話なわけよ。
いや本当に奇妙ですね。
でしょ。
今の演説は。
つまり極左に乗っ取られてるから、バイデン政権というのはね、極左のスキームがどう動いてるのかって話で、この極左スキームはブラジルの選挙にも関与していたって話なんですよ。もう実は30日のほら先週の日曜日ちょうどブラジルで決選投票でわずかの差で、これが大差じゃないんだよね。ほらこれ出たらわずかの差で負けたんですよ、ボルソナロさんが。
いやおかしいよね。
でブラジルのあちらこちらで選挙結果に対して疑問を持つボルソナロの支持派のデモが起こりました。すごい数のデモですよ。
いやこれも
ちょっと見てみますか、このどのぐらい人がいるかっていうの。だからもう何百万人ですよ。
いやこうなるでしょう。
日本のデモとは桁が違う。
いや
でこれ一箇所だからブラジル全土で起こったわけですよね、こういうデモが。それでこの人たちがトラックで高速道路を封鎖したりとか、タイヤ燃やしたりとか、とにかくもうブラジルの都市機能が麻痺しちゃったわけですよ。でボルソナロさんは月火水と3日間沈黙したんだよね。
そうですね。
何も言わなかったからこのデモが広がったんだよ。そうしたら高速道路を封鎖してるデモ隊を粉砕するのに警察が出動しちゃったんだよね、機動隊みたいなのが。それで初めてボルソナロさんが、声明を出したんですよ。ということで見てみたいと思います。こちらです。
どうぞ。
Beleza, compensa. Meu neto vai nascer, vai crescer numa nação que roubar o celular é coisa normal.
Sei que vocês estão chateados, estão tristes, esperavam outra coisa. Eu também estou tão chateado, tão triste quanto você. Mas nós temos que ter a cabeça no lugar. Os protestos, as manifestações são muito bem-vindas, fazem parte do jogo democrático. E ao longo dos anos, muito disso foi feito pelo Brasil. Na Esplanada, Copacabana, Paulista, e tantos outros lugares. Agora tem algo que não é legal. Deixo claro, vocês estão se manifestando espontaneamente. Colocamos a nossa Polícia Rodoviária Federal desde o primeiro momento para desobstruir rodovias pelo Brasil. E eles têm feito um trabalho de tentar desobstruir, mas são muitos pontos. E as dificuldades são enormes. Prejuízo todo mundo está tendo com essas rodovias fechadas. O apelo que eu faço a você, desobstrua as rodovias, protestem de outra forma em outros locais, que isso é muito bem-vindo, faz parte da nossa democracia. Estou com vocês e tenho certeza que vocês estão comigo. O pedido é rodovias. Vamos desobstruí-la para o bem da nossa nação e para que nós possamos continuar lutando por democracia e por liberdade.
でボルソナロさん支持派はさ、もうクーデターだって言ってね、ボルソナロさんが大統領のうちに軍を動かしてクーデターを起こしてもう軍政を敷けみたいな、そういう動きになるんじゃん。だから 2年前のアメリカのさ選挙と全く同じような状況になってるわけですよ。
そうですね。
でも、そうはならなかったわけですね。クーデターにはならなかった。でさっきも言ったけども、ブラジルの選挙にもアメリカが介入してるからだって話で、これもタッカー・カールソンが暴いてます。見ましょう。
どうぞ。
According to official tallies, a convicted criminal and avowed socialist called Lula da Silva beat the incumbent president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, by a narrow margin this weekend. And yet millions of Brazilians don't believe that's what actually happened. Bolsonaro himself has not conceded. There are protests all over Brazil right now. You're seeing some of them on your screen right now. There are questions about whether all the ballots have been counted, why so many were thrown out, millions, and whether election laws were violated in the process. So we can't render judgment on those questions, but if you care about democracy, if you think the process is essential, then you would look into those allegations. Anything less is not democracy. You are no longer allowed to ask questions about this election in Brazil. And you're not allowed because the Biden administration doesn't want you to. That's true. YouTube, which has functioned for the last 2 years as an arm of the Biden administration, has announced it is censoring any posts in Brazil that question the election results. Brazil's courts have also rejected any inquiry into the election. In fact, a Supreme Court judge in Brazil has also ordered social media companies to remove any social media post that questions the outcome. Overwhelming censorship in a, quote, democracy, preventing people from asking questions about how the, quote, democracy functions. So why should you care about this? The first is that the result of this election will determine the extent of China's influence in the Western Hemisphere. If Bolsonaro is determined the loser, and Da Silva does become the president of Brazil, that means that left-wing governments loyal to China outside of our sphere of influence will control all of South America. Brazil was the last holdout. Bolsonaro alone in South America stood in the way of total Chinese hegemony there. But the second reason you should be paying attention to this is that the crackdown on free speech in the wake of Brazil's contested election is a result of policies from our country. The Biden administration has been interfering in the elections in Brazil, period. The Biden administration has already announced that Bolsonaro lost and then threatened Bolsonaro with consequences if he tries to contest the result of the election in his country. The State Department, the Biden State Department, put out a statement saying that Bolsonaro's defeat, quote, reinforces trust in democratic institutions. Really? This is an election that is contested. The demonstrations in the street prove that has not been audited, that apparently cannot be audited by fiat, and that you're not allowed to talk about. How does that restore your faith in institutions? No. Only one thing restores your faith in institutions, and that's transparency. And when governments hide things, you can be dead certain they're lying, period. But from an American perspective, the question is, why was the Biden administration interfering in a foreign election? These are defenders of democracy who believe in free and fair elections. They shouldn't be meddling in other people's elections, but they are. Several years ago, Toria Nuland at the State Department, the woman who's driving our war against Russia, was caught on tape admitting that she had engineered a coup in Ukraine. Was she punished for that? No, she was promoted. Again, she's still at the State Department. So it does make you wonder what we've been doing in Brazil. So last year, our CIA director, William Burns, traveled to Brazil, and while there warned top officials that Bolsonaro could not contest the election results, no matter what. Wait a second. Why would the CIA chief be in Brazil lecturing them about their elections? Isn't that interfering in an election? Oh, yes, it is. Then months after that visit from the head of our CIA, Brazil's Supreme Court ordered the indefinite detention of several Bolsonaro supporters without a trial. What did they do wrong? What was their crime? They, quote, attacked Brazil's institutions in their private communications. They undermined confidence in election integrity, so they had to go to prison. And the most shocking part is not simply that there's corruption in a Latin American country. That's par. The shocking part is that the Biden administration is abetting it and reinforcing it and trying to do the same thing here. What's happening in Brazil now is an escalation. And once again, the Biden administration endorses it, has a hand in it. Within hours of a contested election, people have been banned from talking about it. Street violence is breaking out. Naturally, so-called election deniers are being killed. Why would you imagine any other outcome? In the absence of transparency, what fills the void? Conspiracy theories. If you want people to believe the truth, tell them the truth. Stop hiding things.
いやー、これ
やばい話だよ
本当に深刻ですね。
要するに CIA が絡んでるっていう話なんだからさ、
いやー
確かに言ったんですよね。 CIA のウィリアム・バーンズ長官が秘密で行って関与してたっていうことがもうこれニュースにもなってます。
そうなんですね。いや
だからビクトリア・ヌーランがね、今のロシア問題、ロシアのウクライナの革命にクーデターを起こすのに関与してたのはテープが暴露されちゃったの前もやりましたよね、それと同じで今度 CIA が言ってたって言うんだから、この選挙の去年の段階からボルソナロさんにね脅かしてたわけじゃないですか。なんだかな、
なんだかですね、これはも
だからアメリカをコントロールしてる極左の人たちがアメリカが全員悪いんじゃなくて、今のアメリカの政権の中で乗っ取っちゃった極左のグローバリストたちのスキームがブラジルでも働いてるっていうことですよね。とにかく何とかして再選、ボルソナロさんの再選を阻止したかった。
そうですね。
だから当然この僅差だから、おかしいだろこれはとなる、グローバリストとの戦いだから、で当然人々は思う、それに対して、裁判所さえその質問を受け付けない拒否すると、一切疑問を挙げたものは全部バタバタとソーシャルメディアから抹殺していくっていうのが今のブラジルだっていうんだから、その段階でもう民主主義じゃないわけですよね。
そうですね、もうすでに
それをやる段階で嘘だって、お前たち嘘ついてやましいことがあるからそうやってんでしょってなっちゃうじゃん。だからタッカー言うようにそうし、ちゃんと本当に自分たちが正しいと言ってることを信じてほしいんだったら隠し事しないで真実を伝えろよっていうのはその通りで、
本当に
こういう強権発動してこういうことをやるからますます陰謀が働いてんじゃないかと疑われるに決まってるだろうと、いうことですよ。
いや
だから世界中でレッテル貼られるのも同じ、世界どこも同じレッテル貼られてるわけ今、
そうですね、
メディアの、論調も一緒、疑問を持つとそれに対して同じレッテルが貼られる。大手メディアは報道しない、で YouTube がバンする、全部同じ仕組みが世界中で働いてるってことです、
ツイッターもフェイスブックも
日本だけじゃなくて、だからこの世界中っていうのがやばいわけですよね。
まずです
い
ね、
かにグローバル企業グローバリストたちのスキームが世界に及んでるかって話だから、っていうことなんですよ。